Laura V here. Welcome to today's session. Today I want to talk to you about separation anxiety. And I reckon it's probably one of the most common but also distressing behaviour problems for people and dogs to go through. And so let's see if we can work together to figure out whether your dog's experiencing separation anxiety, if it's something else and how we're going to deal with that. And if it is indeed a separation related problem, what are we going to do about it? What are the steps that you need to go through to make sure that your dog can live a happy, healthy life and that you don't have to spend all day, every day worrying about your dog? Now, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to think from a dog's perspective. You know, guys, I'm all about us appreciating that dogs are sentient, emotional creatures, and the more we treat them as equals, the better behaved our dogs are going to be, because they're going to be happier and they're going to feel respected and trusting of us and us being trusting of them. So separation anxiety is really common because we have selected for a species of dog, the domesticated dog, to be our very best companions over millennia. So if you are selecting for neediness, companionship, all those sorts of companion related types of behavioural traits, you're going to get a species that really thrives far more on being with us than being without us. So dogs being social creatures, the fact that we've genetically selected for all those things that we love so much about companion dogs makes separation anxiety more common, unfortunately, than we'd like it to be. It's a really big welfare problem as well. When you've got a dog that's experiencing separation anxiety, they're essentially having a panic attack. If you've ever had one of these, you feel completely out of control. You can't predict what you're going to do about whatever it is that you're being threatened with, and it makes you feel very helpless. And when dogs panic, they can show that distress in a whole range of ways. So you might think that your dog's experiencing separation anxiety because they are panting, pacing, vocalizing. Maybe you had a complaint from the neighbour, digging up the backyard, scratching at the door to the point where your door is completely destroyed. These are what we would call overt signs of distress. But there are dogs that experience distress in much more covert ways. So even if you can't see what your dog is doing, if it's not obvious to you, it doesn't mean they're not experiencing anxiety. So some dogs will just sit at the back door all day. They will barely move. They won't urinate. They won't drink. They won't eat, and they'll just sit there. And if you don't have a camera on your dog, or you don't know what your dog's doing, you may think that your dog's completely okay. So it's always worth finding out, is my dog experiencing separation anxiety? One of the best ways to do that is to know what signs to look for. Get yourself a camera, set up your iPhone, go out for a couple of minutes and see what your dog does, and look for those overt signs, but also those more covert signs as well. Yes. The other thing I want you to ask yourself is your dog different when you're home compared to when you are out? So if you're home, you know, you probably can't see Harry. I'm home. He's chilling here, having a lovely bake in the sunshine. Chester's in another room because he knows I'm home. He's not wondering where I am, and Cashew's on the couch. Their behaviour when I'm home is different to when I'm not home. And I know that because if I set up a camera, they'll all go to my bedroom and lie on various areas in my bedroom, but they're alert. They're waiting for me to return. So any noise that they hear, they'll be up going to find out what that is and whether or not that's me. So my dogs do experience some element of separation anxiety, but I'm managing that through a range of ways, and I'm going to help you do that as well. The next thing is your vet. I cannot stress how valuable it is to have a wonderful vet that you trust. Think of your vet as your dog's GP, and think of me as your dog's psychologist. So from our point of view, if you're feeling really run down, tired, there's a whole range of physical signs that could or could not be anxiety or depression related, the first thing you do is you're going to go to your GP. You're going to say, I feel really crappy, what's going on, what's wrong with me? And that GP may do a whole range of different examinations. They'll check your blood pressure, they'll check your heart, they'll ask you a whole range of different questions. They'll ask you about your sleeping patterns. They might do some blood tests to check for iron levels or other sorts of things like that. And so your vet will do that as well. They'll ask you a whole range of questions. They'll check your dog's heart rate. They'll do what we call physical examinations and a neurological examination. They might test for pain along your dog's spine and the extensions of their legs and their hips. They'll possibly and hopefully recommend getting some blood tests, so a complete blood count and some biochemistry. Your vet will know to do this based on you telling them your concerns about your dog's behaviour. Because if we diagnose a dog as having separation anxiety, but it's not actually separation anxiety, there's something else going on, then we're going to be trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist and not fix a problem that does exist. So the correct diagnosis is absolutely critical, especially when it comes to behaviour issues like separation anxiety. An example might be if your dog howls all day long when you put them outside and it's cold and raining whilst you're at work. It may not be that they're distressed because they're separated from you. It might be that they're arthritic and they're in pain and they're crying out because they're distressed, because they're uncomfortable, not necessarily because they're separated from you. So once again, correct diagnosis is absolutely critical in dealing with a problem correctly and long term. Remember that. Once we know that your dog is in tip-top physical health, then we can look at referring to psychology, right? So this is where I will come in and we'll go through a whole range of things that we need to understand about your dog and your relationship and the history and how long you've had the dog for, what breed that can play a role in it as well, what their lifestyle is like, how long they're home for, where they have access to when they are left on their own. These are all really important questions to ask and to answer in terms of us uncovering what the cause and the problem is. So some of the things I would always recommend we do generally is to allow your dog to have access to their safe place. Now for me, as an example, my dog's safe place is in my bedroom, either on my bed or in their doggy beds. So they've got access to the whole house and to part of the outside of the property. I've got a couple of acres, so I don't want them having access to all of that if I'm not home, just because of snakes and other sorts of creepy crawlies. So they have access to that. They can come and go as they like. But even then, knowing that they have access to that space, they still are on high alert, even though they can go to the place where they feel most in control of, where they associate relaxation and positivity and control and routine. But please make sure your dog has access to that. That may mean, guys, that you have to allow your dog to have access to inside. If your dog sleeps inside, if your dog sleeps on the couch, if your dog sleeps in their own doggy bed, wherever, one of the best ways to solve separation anxiety is to allow them to have access to that when you're not home. So consider that as an option really seriously, because it may help us. The other behaviour management techniques we can try are things like mat training. So cueing your dog or luring your dog with really high value food and enthusiasm onto a bed, onto a safe place, and progressively expecting more and more from them on that safe place is a really good way to teach them to feel in control of their environment when they can't access you. So what you would do is you would cue them. When I say cue, I mean sort of direct them and reinforce, reward them when they go onto the bed. When their 4 feet are on the bed, your hand magically opens and they get food. Then what you might do is 4 feet on the bed and they sit, then they magically get food. And then gradually 4 feet on the bed and they drop and they lie down, magically get food. Then what you can do is you can cue them to stay there for increasing periods of time. So you might just take 1 step away, then return to them, give them the food. 2, 3, 4 steps away, return to them. You must always return to them, don't call them to you. And what that mat training does is when you give them more than they expect, it teaches them that whatever they were doing results in something even more wonderful than ever, and they remember it and they learn from it. So if you can get to a point where you spend a week consistently doing this training, making it really fun and positive and predictable and controllable, you should be able to get to the point where you can walk out of that room, out of that space for 30 seconds and return with more than they expected praise and all wonderful things really successfully. And that will teach them that when you walk away, when you're out of sight, when you're not accessible, that's an opportunity rather than a punishment. So it's so valuable to be able to teach them that when they can't access you, good things are able to happen. They most likely will happen. And you know, when you think about anxiety, the main cause of anxiety is a lack of predictability. So if you can create predictability in that routine, it helps to really reduce that anxiety level. Other things that we can do or we can include as part of your veterinary visit, your behaviour modification, is introducing things like nutraceuticals, which are your supplements and natural additions to the behaviour change. Now remember, anything that you give your dog, you must make sure is safe, and the only person who can say that is your vet. So even supplements, it's critical you let your vet know that you're giving them the supplement, because it can have what we call contraindications in some dogs of different breeds, different ages, different health issues as well. The supplements I like to use for my dogs and for clients' dogs is the Zami Pet Relax and Calm Chew, which they can eat. You can give it to them every day. You can give it to them leading up to an event that may cause a little bit of distress. The results of these, anecdotally from people that have tried these, have been really quite amazing. So the Relax and Calm from Zami Pet is one option. There's also Zylkene, Zylkene, which is a protein that nursing mums will give their pups, and that helps to alleviate any sort of irritability. It helps to create that calm relaxation when puppies are nursing from their mums. There's some evidence that helps to reduce anxiety in a capsule form. There's also the dog appeasing pheromone, or the DAP diffuser. You can get that online or from your vet. Once again, make sure that, for example, you don't have a pregnant or nursing female dog. If you're using something like that, always check with your vet, because it can be contraindicated. It can cause a problem if your dog's on other medication or there's something else going on in their life. Nutraceuticals can be great. You may also want to introduce pharmaceuticals as per your recommendations from your vet. So when I talk about pharmaceuticals, we're talking about things like SSRIs, like Prozac, your selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. These things have, huge amounts of evidence for humans, and certainly great evidence for dogs and for cats and other pets as well. So be guided by your experienced and trustworthy vet about pharmaceuticals. Sometimes other medications in combination with the SSRI, like trazodone, may be recommended as well. So some of these things the language may become familiar to you if you're talking to your vet about your dog's possible separation anxiety. So there's some things, there's a bit of a plan for you to go through bit by bit, go through your management plan, go through your veterinary visit, assess what's going on, make sure the diagnosis is actually separation anxiety, it's not something else, and look at other additives to help your dog overcome that stress, because it's an awful thing for a dog to go through. Some people say, well, why don't you just get another dog? That can work beautifully. It doesn't work a lot of the time, and if you get another dog and your other dog, your original dog, is still experiencing separation anxiety, then that's not only bad for you, it's bad for the original dog to have another dog, and that dog is also going to become distressed when they're left alone because of the original dog. So that's why, first of all, it's so important to make sure that the separation anxiety is diagnosed correctly and is caused by the absence of you or your family members leaving. Because if it's just about you, and it's got nothing to do with being in the company of another dog or having company, then getting another dog will be completely futile. So yeah, remember, I'm all about dealing with the cause, finding out what's causing the problem, alleviating the triggers, giving your dog new skills to cope with that thing that's making them distressed, and always having a great vet and a great behaviourist to help you through that journey. One other great idea that I recommend to all my clients is to get a journal and to write down everything that goes on. So when you've got a dog that's experiencing separation anxiety, you will notice that the dog is experiencing that well before you even leave the home. So when you're in the bathroom doing your hair, putting makeup on, putting deodorant on, having a shower, getting up at certain times of the day that are outside of the norm, any change, and there's probably hundreds and hundreds of tiny little triggers that you don't even realize you're doing or are part of your environment that indicate to your dog that you're going to leave them. and they're already in that panic state of mind then. So write down everything that they're doing and note all that. Get your camera to see what they do when you're not home. Observe what they do when you do get home. Don't be a bit of a dick and completely ignore your dog. Acknowledge your dog calmly and then just keep moving. Redirect their behaviour with a toy or get them to sit for a treat, and then just allow them to settle. The whole notion of, ignoring your dog for 20 minutes and all that kind of stuff doesn't reinforce their anxiety. You can't reinforce an emotional state. So don't get too caught up in that kind of tactic. Remember, if you subscribe to this enables me to create more free content for you. You can always ask for help with questions that you've got, and I'll do a video like this that helps guide you through the problem that you've got with your doggo. You can always head to my website laurav.com.au. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook and TikTok as well. Thank you so much for subscribing and supporting me helping you guys out and your dog's health and happiness too. And I'll catch you next time.